a song for you.
You're listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I will do one episode for each song the band recorded in the studio. However, this is a fan podcast and not band endorsed. It's more of a tribute to their long history, well beyond just the hits, and my way of giving something back to a band that has given so much to me. Let's dig in! Hello and welcome to another episode of Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and today we are doing a massive revisit. We are revisiting the song Burn from the album Burn. Nate from the Deep Purple Podcast and I originally reviewed this song, and in real time, it was about a week ago, and I've been thinking about it over that week. What is it about this song and particularly the solo, because we went into a lot of detail about the solo. I'm going to revisit a couple points in it again today that I really want to focus on. Might be a bit redundant, but God, I just love it so much. And I've been thinking about what is it about it? What is the magic here? And I've got a couple of elements that we'll get into when we get to that section. But in the meantime, it's a great album opener. Just a great, powerful track, a great way to introduce the new band, because remember, we had a dual lineup change here. We got a new singer, two new singers, and a new bass player. And that's a huge change in the writing, the performance, the sound of the band. And, the people had to make a decision, and coming out of the gate with this potentially being the first thing they heard from the new band, if there hadn't been a radio single, or if they hadn't heard the single before the album came out, they go down to the record store. Oh, cool, new Deep Purple album out. They buy it, they come home. Wait, they're looking at the cover. There's two different guys on there. What's going on? What's this going to sound like? They put it on, and this is what they get. There would be no question at this point that this band is still flying high, that they're still a hard rock act, that they still have a lot of energy and a lot of power, and are just willing to put everything to the test when they hear this track. If Stormbringer had come out instead of Burn, I think it would have been a completely different situation. I mean, the sound of it being the way it is and all that, which I talk about in a couple of the episodes during that season about the difference in sound qualities and all that. But even the opening track, it's a good hard rock song, but it's not explosive like this is. This is a hard rock band introducing the new lineup and saying, you know what, I know you guys love the last lineup of the band. You gave us great support. You were there for us. We're charting all over the place. And you know what? We've still got it. We brought in some new guys, some fresh blood. We're on fire, and we want you to feel the flame. Here's Burn. Check it out. The song and the album. And I think they came out in spades. I think that there would have been no question that this band is continuing along that hard rock journey. You hear this, you're like, oh my God, what are they going to be like on stage? Right? You can only wonder. And then not too long from here, at some point, during this, I think it was somewhere in the early part of the tour, they get California Jam, which was, probably one of the most memorable performances. A lot of that having to do with the politics behind it, the delay in playing, the amp explosion, all that stuff. But anyway, just a very memorable show, and no question that the new lineup of Deep Purple is every bit as hard and heavy as the previous lineup. Obviously, they're not going back to the psychedelic rock. There's no huge shift like there was going from Mark I to Mark II. And I think it's always, when a band you love puts out a new album, I think there's a lot of apprehension. I hope this is going to be good. You're excited because there's new material from a band that you love, but at the same point, you're just kind of hoping that they haven't taken a turn that you don't like. That they're staying in a vein that made you love them in the first place. And I think about how many people going from Mark I to Mark II did they lose just because they changed their style? Like, how many of those people were loving what they were doing, but not ready to take the leap into hard rock in 1970 or 1969? I would imagine some, but I think with this, there wasn't as much concern over that because they weren't really changing their style of music. They were just changing the sound of it. Come Stormbringer, that might have been a different story. But usually, I mean, if you love a band and they put out one album you don't like, you don't dump the band. You're like, well, I've liked the last 6 albums they put out or last 7 albums they put out. This one I didn't care for, but that's all right. I'll still go see them live because I love the band. They're going to do a bunch of songs I like. They might do a couple I don't care about with this new album, but you're not going to leave the band over one album that you don't like. But coming into Burn, I mean, God, they just came out of the gate on fire. And let's get into the track, and we'll see if maybe I find some things in here that I haven't heard before. I've never done a solo critical listen of this song, so this could be interesting, or I might realize that I've listened to this so much and in such depth that I don't find anything new. Very possible. Either way, we're going to find out. Here it is, Burn by Deep Purple. For the little bit of guitar playing that I've done, I just kind of get the sound that I need for what I'm recording and don't really worry about too much after that. I have enough engineering skills to make things work, and enough, different plug-in options and things to get different levels of distortion and all that. So I don't know guitar playing well enough to say if it's the way he's playing it or the sound of the guitar, or maybe a combination of the performance choice and the sound. But this guitar sounds nice and heavy. There's not a lot of bottom end in it, but despite that, it still sounds good. And when I say bottom end, I think about if you were listening to, say, like a Metallica song, take anything off the first, say Master of Puppets or Ride the Lightning. The guitars have a very heavy, beefy sound to them. The guitars doesn't have that beefy sound because it doesn't have a lot of low end pushing it. But you've got to remember too, there's a lot more melodic choices in a band like Deep Purple than there would be with a band like Metallica. So when you're setting the guitar tone, it's not just how you want the guitar to sound, it's how it's going to blend with the other components, like when you bring the organ in and when you bring the bass guitar in. So Ritchie doesn't necessarily have to fill those shoes because you have more than just a rhythm guitar and one bass backing you up. You've got the keyboard as well, which is going to be able to play a variety of sounds and cover a lot in the sound field if you choose to do that. And I don't think it would be easy to argue that we're lacking for anything in the sound field in this song, because it's a very rich and full sounding song. But I do have to say, compared to, I guess, maybe again, I'm thinking about Stormbringer, because I just was recently working on that season. And just comparatively, the guitar sound is much heavier here. It sounds great coming out of the gate. Even without the rest of the band coming in, it has a great sound to just get the song started. Really trying to use terms that aren't related to fire, like they're this band is smoking, they're hot, all those things that I could say about the song, because it really does fit. And I have to wonder if that might have been part of where the idea came from. This song is fire, let's call it Burn, and they start writing the story of the witch. I do have to say that David is also, like, he's just putting everything into it. You feel the story, you feel like what he's telling you is something that it almost just happened. He's singing with the intensity of somebody who just ran in the room and says, I got to tell you guys what happened. It feels very fresh. It doesn't feel like he's recounting some old story from his memory. He's very excited. He's passionate. He's singing full force. And I think that really makes a difference. I think that's a big part of the song. Don't really know that Nate and I got into that. I remember saying we loved his voice, we loved the sound of it. I don't remember talking about that. Maybe we did. Yeah, that reverb is pretty amazing. And I can't remember from the isolated tracks, because I haven't listened back to that episode yet, but if there was that much reverb on the vocals the whole way, or if they just put that in for that part. But either way, it's very effective. During a verse, when there's a lot of instrumentation behind the singer, you won't necessarily hear all the reverb. You won't even necessarily feel it. It's one of those things that it's more like if it wasn't there, the song would sound strange. It would be very noticeable how dry the vocals are. But with the reverb in there, you won't necessarily hear it as much as just experience it. It's kind of a weird thing, I know, but there is a difference between the two. And they may have just turned it up for this tale where we're just getting the singers so that the room, the room tone is there. You feel like it's recorded somewhere big. You're not, the sound isn't dead in the song. It's very possible that they boosted it for that, but it's also very possible that that's just how it is through the song because, like I said, it gets buried. It isn't enough that Ian Paice is soloing through the verses, but even on these transitions, he's doing some pretty massive fills sometimes. And that really keeps the energy of the song going. I think if they weren't there, I don't think we would lose much because the tempo's there, even if he were to do like, a more basic fill, because we're getting so much during the verses. But I will say it does enhance the song. To have something that continues to be grandiose even in the transitions. His performance on this is top notch. People, I've heard, I should say, people over the years say that this is one of his best songs, and I would agree because he's doing a lot of great stuff in it. But that's just from I don't know if showing off is the right term that I want to use or not, but I guess active. Because there's other songs where I could say, I think he's doing something pretty amazing, like No, 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 or No One Came would be another one where he's just putting these hi-hat lifts in just kind of almost seemingly random places. The beat has a really interesting feel to it. I might say that's one of his best songs because it's really creative and keeps you on your toes as a listener. This is what I would say is a great performance as far as like an energetic, creative fills, almost, as close as you can get to just a full-on drum solo instead of a song. I would say it would be probably the best among those. And, you look at a song like Lay Down, Stay Down, where he is also doing a lot of soloing, but it's not quite like this. This is almost full-on drum solo, whereas Lay Down, Stay Down is a lot of fills. There's a difference between the two because he's playing that beat. But yeah, overall, I would say it's a fantastic performance from A to Z from Ian Paice. I've heard a few live performances. I can't speak anymore, but I have heard them. A few live performances of the song. There's a great one on Made in Europe. I've never heard him play this song in any way where I felt like he's just repeating the fills. He's just, dialing it in. I mean, he is 100% invested when he plays. And I love that. I love the idea that he has about why he does it. He does it because he got into it because he loved it as a kid. And every time he gets to go on stage, he gets to feel like that kid again. And I love that. I think when you have that mindset, you're going to play full on with all that energy and not think about your age or what you can and can't do. You're just going to go give 100% or, as much as you can. And even though they haven't performed the songs since the Slaves and Masters era, when I've heard him play this, even with other bands, because he's got his, Perpendicular, I think is the cover band he goes out and plays with. Even when I've heard him do it there's smaller venues, the sound is not as big, so it's downplayed a little bit, but he still plays it with great force, great creativity, and he's just got the talent where he doesn't have to go, okay, let me memorize what I played so that I have something to draw from. He just plays it. A lot of times it's the simplest thing that can make a change that affects a song. And I was just thinking, the California Jam video, when you watch it, Ian's still playing his smaller kit, his one rack tom, couple of floor toms, a kick and snare, not a huge kit, but yet this feels like he's got so many colors, even though he really doesn't. And that's one thing I've always appreciated about the way he plays. Now, if you're not a drummer, you may not know that the closer you play to the rim, the tension in the drum obviously will change because it's a head that's stretched. So you get your deepest tone in the middle, which is where you typically want to play. But if you want to do something different, add an effect, play something a little deader, head out towards the rim of the drum a little bit, it gets deader because you're not hitting it where it's the most exposed. And you're also getting a higher pitch because it's getting more tension as you get towards the edge. So you can certainly strategize that a little bit, even with fills like this. Even if you're kind of soloing, you can still strategize a little bit where you want to hit the drum if you've got the dexterity to pull it off, which of course Ian does. But it made me think about it. And I mean, we'll never know. We'll never have an answer to this. But I would wonder how different he would have performed this song if he had the kit that he used on Come Taste the Band. He's got a bunch of smaller toms. He's got a lot of melodic choices. And, I haven't started the season in real time yet, but I'm sure that I'll have talked about that at great length by the time I'm done with that season, about the sound of the drums and how different it is on that album because he brought in a lot of different melodic choices. I, as a drummer, like to be melodic. I like to have a lot of rack toms, not because it looks cool. I mean, let's face it, it does look cool. But that's not why. I like to do it because I like to have a lot of melodic choices. I think part of that comes from that songwriter side of me. I don't use a 49 key keyboard. I use an 88 note keyboard because I want that variety without having to reprogram or shift things. I want to just be able to have all the options right in front of me to be able to play in a way that I feel suits the song. And that gives me the full melody range, right? But as a drummer, you're limited to what you have as a kit. So I always like to have 6 rack toms. 8 would have been great, or a set of like rototoms to lead into my higher toms would have been cool. But the most I ever had was 6. And I loved that. I loved having those melodic choices. It really gave me a lot of options to really put something different into the drums than just, your standard kit. But look at what he's doing with this. I mean, it's just amazing. So I have to wonder what he would have played, what it would have sounded like if he was playing on the Come Taste the Band kit and had more melodic choices. How would he have played it? Would he have even gone in that direction, or would he have just done what he did here? It's interesting to think about. Like I said, unfortunately, I mean, it's kind of pointless speculation, but because we'll never know. But certainly interesting to think about how different the song could have been just based on the equipment he owned. I really like these little notes that we're getting from Richie. And it's interesting because I remember when I did the review of Love Don't Mean a Thing, which I just recently did here in real time. Because today is May 21st. So I think it was yesterday that I recorded that. The days just blurring from one to another at this point. But I remember saying like how thin the guitar sounded, and it just, like the notes he was playing was fine, but they just seemed really weak. But in this song, where he's using similar notes, obviously in a different way because we're not getting that melody, but he's throwing in those same notes, but they just sound so much better against this background. So maybe in part it was also the background in Love Don't Mean a Thing that was lacking the power to make the guitar stand out a little more. Obviously the style and everything too, but he's playing the same note. If I were to isolate that, it would probably sound fairly weak. But against this background, you've got the vocals, you've got, the drums, everything's so powerful and in motion and, exciting that these notes that he's playing, these fill-ins just sound absolutely fantastic. They're so simple. And again, sometimes the simplest thing can make the biggest difference. that subtle phaser is so fantastic. I mean, it's not so subtle that it's not noticeable, but it's not so in your face that they're, you know, like, oh my God, look, we're using phaser. Like it's just very gently put in enough to be noticed and felt. I think it's fantastic. I love the concept of that. I think it sounds great on the vocals. I'm glad they didn't do it on everything else. Who do we think you are? I feel like they would have put it on the drums and everything else, but I think that this sounds good with it just being on the vocals. Just adds a nice little synthetic feel to it. It kind of it kind of makes it a little bit ethereal too, in considering our subject matter of this witch wreaking havoc on a town for whatever reason. It works. You know, I think we talked about this during John Lord's part in the last episode, but I love how everybody's just backing off and letting the solo come forward. Although in the mix, it is a little bit, I could use it a little bit more in the foreground. Also, I do love what Richie's playing. I love the solo so much. I really do. Every note is just fantastic. But what we're missing is, I think, a little bit of bottom end for the solo. Now, it sounded good in the beginning. I talked about that. But where I think we're missing here is the guitar just, it sounds a little trebly. I think it could use a little bit of low end here, a little bit to beef it up. I don't think we would lose the dynamics of it if it's EQ'd properly, but I think we're just missing a little bottom end to really push the solo through. That and the combination of it being slightly lower in volume. I think you push it up maybe 3 or 4 dB on the mixer and you put a little bit of low end EQ on it. I think this would have sounded a little bit better, but that's just me. So this is interesting because we're getting the main melody from Richie in the right ear, but then in the left ear, a little further to the left, so not quite balanced. We're getting a sort of, it feels almost like a scratch pad, like he's just coming in and just putting notes here and there. Almost feels like he's seeing what's going to work, but it sounds great. It's not a pattern. He's just like coming in at points. And I mean, but that's Richie's brain. You know, he can do that. He just has that ability to, you know, I know what I did here, so I know what I need to do over here. And it's magic. But that's really interesting. We're getting the bass over also in the right ear. And then the organ is kind of in the background, panned more towards the center. So it's an interesting combination of sounds, but I really like the split between the two tracks that Richie's playing here. It's pretty interesting where these accents are going and how good they sound. I feel like I've probably noticed this at some point, but I like how he drops that last note there. Instead of playing it so that it's fluid and smooth and just flowing nicely, he drops that note and gives it just that split second breath that we don't get on the other passages of this riff. I really like that. That's unexpected and very cool. I love how heavy Glenn's bass sounds through this point, and then we're getting, you know, it's really John that's carrying us through the riff on this part. But yeah, that contrast in sound is really good, and I think part of the reason that this whole song just feels so well rounded and balanced, just absolutely rich and full. If I put my producer hat on and really take an honest look at this song, we're a little over 6 minutes on this one, probably about 6:02 with the blank spots on the file ID. I'm not sure we need this section to repeat here. We just had it before the solo. So I'm not really sure that we need it again before the next solo. I feel like we could have just come out of the last part and gone right into the keyboard solo without dropping any energy. We're not learning anything new vocally. It's really just repeated. And I could say we could stand to lose it if I were to make any changes in the song. I think this would be it. I'm not saying we need to make changes in the song because, obviously what they put out is what we have. But thinking about this as a producer, I would say I might be willing to drop this part just because it just repeats and it's just more space between solos. I think we could get out of Richie's solo into that little transition right into John's solo and not lose any momentum. And we're not really, this is just repeated. It's not even done a way that's different from the way they did it last time. It's one of those rare things which almost feels copy paste, which I don't often feel that way from Deep Purple. Not to interrupt John's masterful work here, but there's something interesting in the beat. It's not straightforward. And I'm sure I've played this properly before. I don't know that I've really consciously thought about it, or maybe I just forgot that it does this. But it's not just going boom, tap, boom, tap. It's going boom, tap, boom, tap, boom, tap, boom. It's got a little bit of a swing to it. And that's really cool. They're not doing anything, again, they're not doing anything to take away from John Lord, to draw attention away from him. It's just a different rhythm, but I like the feel of it. It actually, it has some good motion to it. It's interesting. Okay, so before we get into this next part, which is the part I want to kind of go into a little bit, I like what Glenn's playing during this, because at some points he's kind of up on the neck a little bit, giving us a little more melodic bass choice, and then he goes back down and just lets these crazy, out of control keyboard sounds come through. And I like that. That's a good contrast, because it's not distracting, but it's also not just playing the root note and just keeping the low end up. It's actually a good variety of background for John's solo. But the solo is, I said it in the first review how much I love it. It's excellent. It's one of my favorites from John, and I hate using the F word, but it really is. I could listen to that over and over and over again. Absolutely amazing. I get shivers every time I hear it, because it's such an incredible performance, so beautifully written, fits the song amazingly well, and it's just on fire. And I mean, every adjective that's positive, just throw at this, because it deserves it. But let's listen to it again, and this time try and follow along with the synth in the background. So it's just this almost like whistle, like a low whistle sound. It's, basically like I think it's a square wave. synthesizer sound. But just follow that through, because I've always said if you want to break something down, actually it was my buddy Nash in Australia that told me this, excellent composer. And he said to me, if you really want to learn a piece of music, listen to every single instrument until you know what that instrument does. Then you move on to the next one and learn everything that does and move on to the next one. So I just want to give a little bit of a focus on the synthesizer here in the background, because what he plays on top of this solo is pretty amazing. And I think it just adds such a layer to it that, it would have been fine without it, but then you're going that extra mile. You're giving it that extra 25% that you didn't even know you needed until you heard it. And this is such a cool synth line. I think it deserves a little bit of attention. So if you were able to do that and just kind of separate out the synth a little bit, you might have gained a little more appreciation, even more than you might have already had, for what Jon Lord's really doing here. And that's just, it's a simple thing over a complex thing. And sometimes it's just that extra layer that can make a big difference. And I think it does work very beautifully here in the song. I want to go back to a part that I went back to on the episode with Nate, just because it is one of my all-time favorite things in music. And then I'm going to talk about why I think all this works so well for me. So while he is playing this Bach-esque I can't say it, Bach-esque melody here, there is this little connection that he puts in their little connective tissue where it repeats. And it's just this little da-da-da-da-da, just this simple little thing. And imagine the speed he's playing at, all the notes he's playing. It's fast and furious playing. And then he still finds time to add this little ribbon on the package of this part. And I love that he did that. For him, it was probably very natural. It's just the way he played it. Didn't really think about it. But when I hear it, I'm like, this is just a moment of musical magic inside of a moment of musical magic. It's almost like you put a mini cupcake on top of a cupcake on top of a cake. That's what we're getting here, just musically, and less sugary. It might be a little hard to hear because it's just blended in so well, but it's just so simple, so cool. Hopefully you can hear it, or you can hear what I'm talking about. I know sometimes, like when you're in the middle of a part and you're trying to track where you're at, it might be easy to miss, but listen to it on your own. It's just right in between the first time he plays it and then just like immediately repeats it. And it's just that little hinge that keeps the door on the frame. That I absolutely love that. One of my all-time favorite pieces of anything in music. So I was thinking about it, and I think I understand why I like this part so much. I mean, aside from it being beautifully written and performed, as I've said several times ad nauseum probably, but it's everything. It's rhythmic, it's melodic, it's classical, it's rock and roll. It's all these things swirled into one. And then on top of that, you're getting this wonderful synthesizer that just adds that extra sound, that extra element that it just, when you think you don't need it, he gives you even more. And it's all those things. It's such an amazing part. I absolutely love it. I could listen to it over and over. It was harder on vinyl. Like once you get the cassette, it's so much, or once if you burn it to a cassette, so much easier to just, stop, rewind, where it's at, stop, rewind, play it, on an album, you're like lifting up the needle, trying to find where to drop it, and then either listening to too much or jumping around trying to find the spot. So it's certain things about vinyl were very difficult. But I could listen to this over and over again and be very content. So kudos to you, Jon Lord, on that. I mentioned in the last episode that line, the way that David sings it here in the second verse, where he says, I don't understand, that it sounds just exasperated, frustrated, nervous. All those emotions are in the way he sings that line differently. At first, it's like a storyteller, but here it's like, I'm just beside myself. And I love the feeling of that. And then when he gets to the second part of the verse where, people saying the woman is damned, that part, again, it's kind of like that. I give up. There's nothing we can do. And I just love the way that he sings this differently from the first verse at the beginning of the song, because he could have just repeated it and we wouldn't be thinking anything of it. But he sings it in a way that's just like, I told you the story. I still don't get it. I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm frustrated. I'm beside myself, all the things. And it was a great choice. And I think this being, again, the first thing people would be experiencing with this new Mark of Deep Purple, if they just got the album, great way to introduce the new singer. It's showing that he's got that side to him. He's not just a great voice, he's a storyteller, and he's going to bring out that emotion in you. So we're getting a lot here out of this guy. Yep, there it is, folks. Burn. Incredible song. Love the ending. And I didn't really talk that much about Glenn's bass playing through the whole song, but he's really playing some spectacular stuff in here. Kudos to him. But to get back to that part that I said, I think we can do without the second section where we go, we have no choice, that Glenn sings. I think part of it too might be that flange that's on it, because we're getting that not just once, but twice. And it's the same. If maybe they did the first one without the flange and the second one with the flange, it wouldn't feel like it's just kind of a little bit of copy paste, which, like I said, is rare for this band, because usually, every pass at something has its own unique properties to it. And I there might be some that I'm just not picking up on, but it feels just very like, okay, I just heard that. Why are you doing this again? And it doesn't really add anything. So I think maybe that's part of it too, is if they didn't do the flange or the phaser effect on the first one, but gave it to us on the second one, that would make it different enough to make me feel like it's worthwhile. But other than that, and it's a part I could skip over, honestly. But if that's the worst thing I have to say about the song, and it really is, then I think we're doing okay. I think the guys will be all right. I think this band is going to make it. Not this band, but the band overall. So yeah, great song, a great song. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. It's certainly one, obviously, that I'm incredibly passionate about, as was Nate when he came on the show, when we did the original review. I had a second guest planned who wasn't able to make it to the meeting. We're actually trying to reschedule a separate episode. So I don't know when this comes out. I don't know if that will have happened or not, because it's May when I'm recording this, May of 2025. So, about a year or so ahead of time. So I don't know what'll happen. Hopefully we'll be able to do it. And there might be multiple Burn episodes, multiple feelings on the song. We shall see. Time will tell. But in the meantime, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you have a wonderful day, whatever day it is, because I don't know. We don't know yet when this will air, but I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoy the song. It's such a fantastic song. If you like hard driving rock and roll, you got it right here, guys. We will see you in the next episode. Cheers! Thanks for listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast, a tour of the entire Deep Purple studio recordings. Please remember to give the show a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Leave a comment and tell your friends. I also have a Patreon set up if you'd like to support the show. You can also write to me at smokeonthepodcast@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and thanks for listening.